Hello and welcome back to the Football Roundup. I'm your host David Ronney and I'm joined in the studio today by the likes of Gregor, Kerr, Bryce Donaldson and Luke Barry, rounding up all the football action from the last week. Before we jump into the show, we're always going to read our teaser for the week, and it's involving Leicester's win from last night. Yesterday, won by 2-0 against Sevilla, a 3-2 goal aggregate, which takes them to the quarter-finals of the UEFA Champions League. So they are the 8th Premier League club to reach the quarter-finals in this competition. But can you name the other 7 Premier League clubs to reach this stage of competition? So I'll read that again. So Leicester City made history by becoming the 8th Premier League club to reach the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League. But can you name the other 7 Premier League clubs to reach this stage of the competition? If you do have the answer, please do tweet in at Radio ENRG or at Football ENRG with using the hashtag FRU Show. And if you're right, we will shout you out on the show today. So we're going to go right into it and start with the Champions League, and I'm going to give you guys a chance if you want to cover one great game or the other, that is Barcelona or the Leicester game. So Gregor, what do you fancy?
Probably the Barcelona game.
We'll go into that one first. So Barcelona, if you've not seen the headlines that were plastered on all social media and media itself, Barcelona did make history by making one of the best Premier League comebacks in Champions League history. They came back from a 4-goal deficit to win 6-1 against Paris Saint-Germain, and is arguably one of the greatest comebacks in all Champions League history, Bryce.
Yeah, it's not even just arguably, it is the greatest comeback in Champions League history. I mean, it was kind of, I did say last week, I said if any team's going to do it, it's going to be Barcelona, and they proved me right. It was really quite a magical moment, as kind of the fairy tale ending right down to the last minutes of added time. I'm seeing here 90 plus 5 minutes. That's, it's not always you get 5 minutes of extra time. So and it was even better. It wasn't even a striker that scored the goal. It's this young kind of midfielder that's just come on, and he just slots it home. It was really quite something to watch.
Yeah, look, it was like one of those scenes you see in the Disney films where they get the 3 goals, they look like they're just getting close, the Paris Saint-Germain gets one back, thinks all hope's lost, but right at the end, they get the goal, right in the last seconds of the game. You couldn't write it, could you?
No, and I think that's what makes it more impressive, as you said, that PSG actually got a goal back, because Barcelona scored, I think it was in like 5 minutes, and you just kind of thought, here we go, they could actually maybe do something here. Whether we're going to do it would be a long shot, but the thoughts were there. You thought, okay, this is a good game. But PSG then got one back. I think it was like the 65th minute, and through Cavani. It was a good finish. But I'm not trying to take anything away from Barcelona, particularly Neymar, who I think was a particularly excellent game from him. But Angel Di Maria must hold his head in shame, because that miss in the 80-odd minute would have killed the game. And it was, I think it's funny how it can all turn on a knife. I mean, I predicted last week that I said PSG might win the Champions League. That now looks a bit daft. But I think it's amazing the future of the manager is now in question, because they're not winning the league in France, and having lost to Barcelona in such fashion. If they'd beaten Barcelona, he would have been not a hero, but he would have seen as a positive manager for the next steps of Europe. But now they've lost in that particular dramatic fashion. It could all be over for him.
Well, it is his first season at the club, so it is an embarrassing loss to lose 4-0 in any competition, lose that 4-goal lead. But Gregor, a lot of people are talking about the impact of Neymar over Messi. Does he have the ability to become better than Messi? Maybe not now, but in a few years' time.
I doubt there's many footballers that have got the ability to overtake Messi, but I mean, if anybody could get close to reaching that level, it would be Neymar. I mean, his performance, it's probably the best I've ever seen him play. He just completely took the game by the scruff of the neck, and it was really kind of reminiscent of Messi, say 5-6 years ago. And but yeah, I mean, he's really, really reaching that level where you could probably say he's entering the top 3 in the world, and I wouldn't give it long before he's possibly winning Ballon d'Ors in a year or two.
Do you think he's got that in him, Bryce, to win a Ballon d'Or and take the battle between Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi to a halt and have a new competitor in that 3?
I think definitely one of the main things he's got on his side is his age. He's still relatively, compared to Ronaldo especially, he's still relatively young. So, with a few more years' time, he's only going to get more experience, kind of more of a head on him, very technical player. So, definitely he's got the vision and the ability to be very good. Well, he is very good. He's got the ability to be even better.
Can they go and win the competition, Luke?
I can't see. Well, after the performance against PSG in that comeback, there's no reason at all which they can't do it. But they had been on a good run in their domestic league before that. But interestingly, they actually lost at the weekend 2-1. So, I mean, we'll see where that goes. But obviously, the manager's leaving at the end of the season, so he'll be determined to leave the club on a high. So there is absolutely no reason why they can't. And it's a juicy tie for the quarterfinals because we've got 8 great teams in that draw.
If he does go on to win the competition, Gregor, he'll be leaving on a very high moment. But who could come in and take that glory, not away, but build from it?
I mean, it's a tough one. I think the talk was the Sevilla manager, Joe Sampaoli. That was one that was being discussed. But it's a tough choice. There's probably a few managers. There was Ronald Koeman being discussed, Pochettino. But I think they'll probably look at someone who wants to maybe build long term. Let's say Guardiola did, 6-7 years ago. So I think they maybe go for someone. I think they might go for someone relatively young next season. But to tell who it is pretty difficult.
But considering we'll come on to the Leicester game, Sevilla, do you think that would damage his reputation? That maybe Leicester were very impressive last night, but the fact that Leicester's current league position might affect the Sevilla manager taking that Barcelona job? Or do you think it's more his league position that's a factor?
Yeah, I think. I mean, the Leicester result unbelievable last night. I mean, I didn't see Sevilla going out, but I think you've got to look at Sevilla, and although they probably won't win the Liga, they've taken them very close so far this season. I think they're maybe 6 points off the top, but it was only a point or two in it a few weeks ago. I think you've got to factor in the league performances have been really, really impressive for Sevilla all season.
Well, we've already, just before we move on, we've already got an answer for our teaser by the brother of Luke, Hayden. He has tweeted in with the answer, and I'll tell you, Hayden, you are correct, but we will not announce the answer.
Can I just say, big respect to him as well for what he's written in brackets against one of the teams.
I prefer not to say what he has said on air. But for the other game that night, that was Borussia Dortmund, Benfica. Even though it was a 4-0 win for Dortmund, it was described as the boring game of the night, considering the dramatic scenes that did occur at the Nou Camp. Bryce, you're the Benfica man in the studio today. Are you disappointed that Benfica was managed to just not only throw the 1-0 lead away, but did it in so dramatic fashion to concede not even 1 or 2 but 4 goals?
I think to be honest, it's kind of what everyone expected to happen in the first game. So, the 1-0 win for Benfica at home for them was, it was brilliant. It was a really good confidence booster and everything like that. But Dortmund's not an easy place to go for any team, and Benfica don't have, quite the money or the players like Aubameyang, who I think, he got a hat-trick. So, I mean, it's just Dortmund are a better quality of team, really.
And just considering that hat-trick as well, a lot of Premier League clubs and clubs around the world will have an eye on him. Look, do you think Dortmund can hang on to him for another season or maybe 2, or will he leave this summer, do you think?
I think it would depend who comes in for him. I've probably all seen stuff on the internet before about how his grandfather was particularly keen for him to play for Real Madrid. So if a club like that comes in, I would be surprised to see him stay at Dortmund. But it was an important game for him actually last week, because if everyone remembers the tie before that, he had so many chances to score and didn't do it. But in the reverse leg, he got a hat-trick. So he proved his worth there. But there are Premier League clubs that could definitely do his services, such as Arsenal, perhaps one of the key ones, potentially Liverpool as well. Whether they go to either of those 2 teams is another matter. But if a big Spanish or maybe PSG, something like that came in, I would be surprised to see him stay.
And from there, we're going to go to the results from last night. That was the Leicester City Sevilla. Sevilla did go into the match with a 2-1 win in Spain. Kasper Schmeichel saving a penalty then, and he did the same last night. He saved the penalty when Leicester City were 2-0 up. The first goal did come from Wes Morgan after a free kick, and he conceded the goal at the right-hand corner, or the right goal post, sorry. The second goal did come from Albrighton, a player that at his days at Villa was told that he wasn't going to make it, and now he's not only scored Leicester's first Champions League goal, he also scored the goal that secured their place in the quarter-finals. I know, look, you're not a big fan, I would say, but you admire Leicester, and I think you were kind of roaring on for them last night to go through. But who do you think teams would be scared of them going into this next round?
Well, I think in a way, yes, actually, because what they're achieving is, obviously we've long discussed the issues they've had in the league with Ranieri being sacked, etc. But what they're achieving in the Champions League is nothing short of remarkable. It's similar to what they were doing last year in the Premier League. I don't think anyone would really expect them to have got this far. So for the Leicester players now, they've effectively got nothing to lose, which probably means they're going to go into that game with just absolutely no fear, no matter who they come against. Of course, if they come up against one of the massive European giant clubs, say your Bayern Munich, say your Real Madrid, say your Barcelona's, then they could potentially struggle. But with such belief, they proved last year in the league over 38 games that they can do it. There's no reason why they can't do it over 2 legs.
Gregor, what do you think Ranieri will be thinking? I think knowing him, he is quite a gentleman. He knew be applaud them on for their efforts, but do you think he'll be kicking himself as well that he didn't get those performances in these past few weeks?
I think it'd be natural that he was a little bit frustrated, but I mean they were good in the first leg under Ranieri. I mean that was his last game, was it not? They were quite impressive in that first leg. It's just unbelievable how the performances have completely flipped since Ranieri left, and I don't know if maybe they lost respect for him or what it was, but I think he probably will be quite happy. I'm pretty sure he will definitely be pleased for how they're doing, but I mean it is weird how it's just completely turned since he left there.
Bryce, can they keep up this form, do you think? Do you think they do have 3 wins on the bounce with Craig Shakespeare as their manager? He has been tailed as a man that does keep it together at Leicester, but can they keep it on for the rest of the season?
I mean, it's kind of insane what Leicester have done. Normally when you get a caretaker manager in, there's a bit of dip in form and you try and get a new manager in as quick as possible, but I don't know what it is. Couldn't tell you, to be honest, but for some reason they've completely turned their season around and they're playing a lot better under Shakespeare. And just to quickly throw this in, did you know that Wes Morgan is the only Jamaican player to score in the Champions League?
I did not know that. That's an interesting fact, a FRU fact to say the least. And another one, probably not as interesting as that, was I was reading up an article about Shakespeare's involvement at Leicester, and there was a lot of reports that said that during that fairytale campaign, Claudio Ranieri would travel back to Italy quite a lot to see his mother, who was ill in hospital. So it was up to the staff there to keep everything running and all that. And Shakespeare was the one who worked to that ability the best. I think they had plans like goalkeeping techniques and practices, tactics that we were going to practice, and then Ranieri would come in and completely change it. And the person that only really adapted that was Shakespeare, and I think he should be credited a lot more than I think he is getting credited a lot now, but you can see why he is, because he has been hailed as the spine of that Leicester team. But can they keep up the form? Only time will tell. The other result from last night, that was Juventus. They won by 1-0 against FC Porto, a 3-0 on aggregate win for Juventus. That means that Porto do go out of the competition. Can Iker Casillas return to the Champions League, do you think, Gregor, or do you think this is his last season in the competition?
I think I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. Who's he playing for now?
He's Porto.
So yeah, obviously they're out now. I don't know how long if it's only a 1-year deal or if he's staying there for longer. I mean, thing is, I don't think Casillas would really have much trouble getting himself a new top club in the Champions League. But I think, I mean, he's nearly 40 years old now. I don't think he's got a lot of years left in him, and although he's a great keeper, he has definitely declined, you could say, in the last 4 or 5 years. So I wouldn't say he's completely never playing the Champions League again, but I don't think he'll play in it for much longer, probably.
Well, from one goalkeeper into another in that match was Gigi Buffon. He was playing for Juventus. He is also getting on a wee bit as well. He did retire from international duty after the Euros. I think it was a couple of games he played, and then he did retire. But look, is same with Buffon? Could he still keep up at this top level?
Well, I think he's proven that he can. I think time will naturally come where Juventus will have to replace Buffon, and a lot of people are suggesting that it'll be the current AC Milan keeper Donnarumma that will replace him. That wouldn't surprise you if that happened, but we know Buffon has recently said that the 2018 World Cup would be his last tournament for Italy. So we know he's going to be at least playing for another season. After that, we'll have to see how much he wants to do it, how much he can be bothered constantly training to be the best, because he'll probably get to that point of life where he's achieved a lot of things in the game. So you might wonder what else there is he could possibly do. But the Champions League is something that is how it has been missing from Juventus for a number of years now. So I think he'll have determination to do it. They could, of course, do it this year, But at the moment, there's not really the same sign to Casillas that he's dropped off. Casillas is still a great goalkeeper, but he's starting to make more mistakes. Buffon still seems as good as he ever has been, which is quite incredible for a man of his age.
Yeah, I think a man like Gigi Buffon does. It's like a fine wine when he gets better with age. So we're going to talk about the fixture, for tonight. And the big talking point we're going to go to first is Monaco. They are hosting Manchester City. Manchester City got a 5-3 thrilling win against Monaco at the Etihad, a real thriller in that match. But Monaco only need a 2-0 win against Manchester City to get through to the next stage of the competition. But I think Pep Guardiola, Bryce, he will want to win this Champions League, do you think?
He will be wanting to. I mean,
Can he do it though?
Can he do it is a different question. Guardiola's kind of struggled a wee bit in the league, partly due to that kind of defensive problem. So he's going to want to prove himself even more on an international stage. And it's definitely not easy when you're facing teams who do score a lot of goals like Monaco. So obviously he's going to want to win, but it's going to be interesting to see kind of what tactics he comes up with to try and secure that defence a wee bit more tonight.
And another big player for Monaco, not just Falcao, but Mbappe, Gregor, he has since he's been starting, he's only I think 18 years old, but he's scoring goals consistently, and against not even just teams in France. He did score, I think it was the second goal in that match, but he's been compared a lot to Thierry Henry. Can he have the same impact as him?
I mean, he's very capable of possibly reaching that level. He's very talented. I mean, when you consider that he's only 18 years old and he's already putting in performances that you'd expect of seasoned players, I don't see he's definitely got time on his side. I mean, it's a bit early to tell so far if he can reach that level, but he's a really impressive young player, and I can see him being a good player for France and potentially for Monaco. And
the final match of tonight is Atletico Madrid. They're hosting Bayer Leverkusen. Atletico Madrid did get a 4-2 win in Germany. That does mean they have 4 away goals, so Bayer Leverkusen would need to win by 3-0 tonight. Can they do it, Luke, or is this fixture over for Leverkusen?
You can never really say never in football. I think Barcelona proved that against PSG, but Atletico Madrid, on paper, you would fancy them as the stronger team compared to their German opposition. And yeah, to be honest, I think the game might not necessarily be an Atletico Madrid win tonight. Personally, I think it will be, but it might not be. But they do have quite a mountain to climb to win the tie, so it's not over, but I would say it's going to be a difficult task for Leverkusen to get through to the quarterfinals.
And before we go for a quick break, we're going to read out today's teaser again, and that is regarding Leicester City. Leicester City did make history by becoming the 8th Premier League club to reach the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League. But can you name the other 7 Premier League clubs to reach the stage of the competition? Thanks to Hayden for tweeting in his answer. If you do know the answer, please do tweet in at Radio ENRG or at Football ENRG using the hashtag FRU and we will shout you out at the end of the show if you are right. And now on to the Scottish section of the show. Before we discuss the Celtic Rangers match that did occur on Sunday, the Scotland squad was announced for the matches against Canada and Slovenia, and we've all discussed this before the show and who we would choose for our starting lineup. Luke, I'm going to go to you first. Who would you start in that squad of players?
Okay, so at goalkeeper I'd have Craig Gordon. I think that's a pretty obvious and safe choice. I'd have Andy Robertson at right back, Russell Martin and Grant Hanley's centre back partnership with Kieran Tierney at left back. Then I'd have 2 central defensive midfielders, Scott Brown and Barry Bannon. For me, I think he was impressive the last time Scotland played, even though we got gubbed by England completely. Then I'd play sort of a right mid, a centre attacking mid and left mid, but all kind of attacking midfielders in their own right, with Matt Phillips, Stuart Armstrong and Robert Snodgrass, with Lee Griffiths up top.
What about you, Bryce?
I think I'm going for a very kind of similar to Luke here, kind of a 4-2-3-1 formation I think I'd go for. So, Craig Gordon in goals, he's just shown this season that he's been great at Celtic. Similar defence to Luke, right back, Andy Robertson. But I'm going to put Charlie Mulgrew and Russell Martin as my centre-backs. I think they would work quite well together just to break up play quite well. Kieran Tierney at left back, think he deserves it. Then kind of your holding mids, Darren Fletcher and Scott Brown, just very solid pairing, good at breaking up play, which is what Scotland need really. And then attacking, I'm going to have Matt Phillips on the left wing, Ritchie on the right wing, Snodgrass in the middle and Griffiths up top.
What about you, Gregor?
Defence again is quite similar, but term formation I'm going for 4-3-3. Craig Gordon goals, I mean, been reliable European and domestic level the last few years for Celtic. He's quite simply the best goalkeeper Scotland have got, in my opinion. Again, I've got Andy Robertson at right back. Two centre backs are Martin and Hanley. I mean, centre backs is a tough choice. I think every centre back's come under criticism, but I think that's the best option we've got. And Tierney at left back. In midfield, a few new faces in terms of Scotland squad. I've got Armstrong and Kearney playing in with Scott Brown in the three-man midfield, and out wide I've got Oliver Burke and Ryan Fraser. I think definitely deserves a go. And with Griffiths up top.
Well, for my lineup, and we just did get a message from our good host out in the States, Jamie Braidwood. He is in question why we are all playing Andrew Robertson at right back. I think the reason probably is Kieran Tierney is probably the best suited left back, and Anya probably maybe wouldn't start in our
I'd say Anya's more of a wing back as well. I don't know if I'd want him at right back starting, but I mean.
So there's your answer there, Jamie, and thanks for being involved in the show as always. For me, I would go for a 4-2-3-1 formation again. I would put Craig Gordon in goal. He's been consistently good in for Celtic and internationally, and he was, I think, the real team that could have stopped Rangers on Sunday. He was a real key part in that team. In the defence, I put Grant Hanley and Charlie Mulgrew. Charlie Mulgrew, still, even though he's not at Celtic, he was one of my favourite players when I was growing up in the probably early teen stage. Right back, I put Andrew Robertson as well. He's a good left back, but instead we're going to put Kieran Tierney in there. He speaks for himself. Since coming from the youth squad into the first team, he's been exceptional for Celtic. As holding midfielders, I'd put Scott Brown and Darren Fletcher. Darren Fletcher still, I do believe, does the effort when he's at West Brom. For the three attacking midfielders, I put Oliver Burke, Stuart Armstrong and Robert Snodgrass, and up front I put Lee Griffiths. This may not be the starting lineup, who knows, it's
definitely no extracting that, definitely not be it.
But only time will tell. Look, can Scotland still qualify, do you think, for the World Cup? They've made it more difficult for themselves considering some results, but can they do it?
In theory, yes. Realistically, no, for two reasons. One, because it's Scotland and we don't ever make international tournaments. Secondly, because, as you said, the job has been made a bit too difficult. I think we end up needing to perform at our absolute best every single game, and I'm not sure we're able to do that. And also, we might end up having to rely on results. The one game I think we could do decently is England in June at Hampden Park. Obviously, we lost 3-0 at Wembley, but I think that occasion will be such a big thing for the players. But I think that's the key thing that Strachan needs to build in there, is get a strong team spirit going within the players. And perhaps try and have a more of a sort of system he likes to rely on, because I think he changes it about quite a lot. He chops and changes players out all the time. But then again, a lot of their forms are dipping for their particular clubs. But it will be difficult. I think we'll come close, but I don't think we'll quite make it across the line, unfortunately.
Well, we've got another message from Jamie, but unfortunately I cannot say that on air. But I'll pass the message on in the next break or after the show. But Bryce, do you think the game against Canada, do you think it's more giving these players who, like, for example, Armstrong, a chance to play for their country, or is this like a trial for what's needed against Slovenia?
The match against Canada, for me, I think it's going to tell the way how the rest of the qualifiers go for Scotland. I mean, there's been lots of questions asked of Gordon Strachan, and he's not really done his best to answer those questions. I think if this match against Canada goes well, I think it bodes well for future matches in the qualifying. But for me, I just don't think Gordon Strachan is that manager to kind of pull all the Scotland squad together and kind of make them work well. But I could be wrong, so it'll be interesting.
Well, the Canada game that will not be played at Hampden, that will instead be played at Easter Road, a familiar place for our host Gregor in the studio. But Greg, if Gordon Strachan doesn't win these two games, and if he just says lose both of them, is he still going to be in a job?
I'm pretty sure the Scottish FA came out in November after England said he's our man no matter what. But realistically, if we don't win this game, then we're not. I mean, we've almost got 0% chance of qualifying, I would say. I wouldn't look too much into the Canada game. I think that's more based on performance and maybe giving other players a chance that don't normally play regularly for Scotland. But I think potentially the qualifying game is potentially the last chance for Gordon Strachan for me.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be discussing both the Canada and Slovenia game next week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. as always, so please do tune in. for that. And from there, we're going to go to Scottish Premiership, discuss Celtic Rangers, the Glasgow derby. Celtic took the lead in the 31st minute thanks to a strike with Stuart Armstrong going, taking the lead in half time. But it was Clint Hill in the 87th minute that got the equaliser for Rangers. Pedro Caixinha is now taken over from the role after the interim period. But Bryce, was it just down to Celtic's poor performance, or were Rangers better on Sunday?
I mean, it's kind of a bit of both, really. You know, Celtic are a very attacking team, and I was disappointed by a lot of their attacking players on, was it Sunday?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Stuart Armstrong, I thought he had quite a good game. He had quite a few shots, but Dembele, who's normally quite a live wire, quite a handle for Celtic, and he didn't really turn up, to be honest. It was quite a disappointing game for him, I would say. Lee Griffiths came on with kind of, I think, maybe about 20 minutes to go, and he did have a really good chance at the end, but unfortunately was tackled, shall we say.
Well, we'll discuss that penalty decision. If you've not seen it, I think it was Clint Hill raises his leg to clear the ball. People do say the ball's going in a different direction. People say that he's getting his leg up to his chest and he takes him down. But look, is it a penalty?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a penalty. For Celtic, it's easy for them to sit there and complain about the referee's decision to not give them it, but ultimately they weren't good enough on the day to beat Rangers. So I'd say the draw was the fair result. But given that happened after Rangers had scored, you can understand the Celtic fans and Brendan Rodgers, in fact, grievance at that not being given. I think that's an interesting game. Ultimately, it doesn't really make any difference to what's happening in the Scottish Premiership. It's a good warm-up for the Scottish Cup semi-final that's coming up next month. I mean, I think for Celtic, they'll just have to try and raise the game. As Bryce said, Dembele, who's normally electric for Celtic, wasn't really there. I heard rumours he was at like a concert the night before or something like that, so he might not have been at maybe the sort of level it should have been. But
I think it might have been more down to the other rumour that was scouts from Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester City were at the game watching his performance, and I think maybe he heard those reports and was nervous. I think one man who was there was Alan Pardew. He was watching the game for reasons that are beyond our knowledge. But do you think that's maybe part of the reason? Not maybe Alan Pardew, but these scouts were watching him live at the game. Do you think that's maybe why he did perform, Gregor?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, you could say other big occasions this season, he has definitely been the man for big games. I think, Sunday was the exception. I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, it would probably affect being the back of the mind of most players. But I don't think he can really use that as an excuse that he didn't play well. I thought it was just a poor performance. He was almost anonymous. Whether or not added a little bit of pressure onto it, probably. But knowing Dembele and the quality he's got, he probably should be able to put that to one side and just focus on the match.
So, Bryce, we know that Pedro Caixinha has been appointed as the Rangers manager. He was at the game watching it. I think a lot of Rangers fans were expecting to maybe be battered at this game previous to the results they've had, but they held their own. Is this going to be a difficult job for Pedro now to compete with Celtic, or do you think that display showed that maybe they're not far away?
I mean, it's definitely a start. It's the appointment of a new manager after Warburton left under kind of dubious circumstances. But I do like to see that they're taking a new step. Hopefully this will provide, a wee bit more competition for Celtic in the league so that they don't run away with it again. And if he can build up a semi-decent team to kind of challenge, then hopefully that will kind of raise the whole level of Scottish football as a whole, as more teams kind of get the chance to do better in the league and to kind of maybe challenge for higher up places in the division.
If he does get a Europa League spot, Gregor, do you think they could potentially qualify and go far?
I mean, it's hard to tell considering they haven't played the European game in how many years now. But I think I mean, if they qualify, they'll go straight to the very first round of Europa League, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, it'll be tough for them to get to the group stages. But, I mean, you never know if they get... I mean, it looks like they'll probably get European football over fourth-placed Hearts. But I think it'll be tough for them to get all the way to the group stages and potentially further. But you never know with a sold-out Ibrox and probably what would be an unbelievable atmosphere for the first European game in years. it could make a difference in the European ties next season, you'd imagine.
Well, speaking of Hearts, they did win 4-0 on Saturday against Hamilton, but it appears that consistency is a kind of problem for Ian Cathro's side. Look, am I right in saying that? Do you think it's consistently, or is it just opponents they're coming up against?
Probably a bit of both, in all honesty. I think we've discussed on the show before quite a bit about Ian Cathro, particularly when he was appointed. But the key fact here is that he's still a very, very young manager, so he's always going to need time to sort of learn like tactics, trade about the game, sort of know his players a bit better. I think next season, as we say, is the acid test for him. If he continues to be this inconsistent, then the fans' sort of annoyance or maybe the board getting slightly frustrated would be understandable. Right now, I think Hearts are kind of where they should be in the table. They maybe could want to expect challenge mode. Don't know if they can expect it. But for Cathro, I think the summer in between the end of this season and start of the next season is the vital one. He needs to get his players together, sort of establish a spirit, establish a starting 11, perhaps bring some more names in, and let the ones that came in January further adjust, and then we'll have to judge them better. But as you said, the consistency right now is lacking from Hearts. So if it's an ongoing problem, it will be a concern. But right now, I think they can use the excuse that Cathro's still very young to the game.
Well, other results from the weekend on the Saturday, that was Aberdeen. They were hosting Motherwell. Motherwell without a manager. Currently, they're, I think, still in the hunt for one, if I'm not mistaken. But Aberdeen did win 1-0 against Motherwell. Probably not as big as that battle of the 7-2 earlier this season. Partick Thistle, they drew 1-1 with Inverness Caledonian Thistle. Partick Thistle probably looking to stay up, and Inverness battling as well. But with the Scottish Premiership, we don't know who's staying up, who's going up. The point gap, we always talk about the gap between Celtic and everyone else, but the gap between the other teams below, it is not as distant as it seems. Ross County, they hosted Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock won by 2-1. St Johnstone, they won by 2-0 against Dundee. And the fixtures for this weekend, Aberdeen, they host Hearts in Aberdeen. Big game for them. Can Hearts get the result, Bryce?
It's a difficult game to go to, especially an away match for them. But I think for the second and fourth at the moment, it could go either way. Hearts have shown that on their day they do have quite a lot of quality, but not to take away from Aberdeen. But I think if Hearts do have their day, I think they could beat Aberdeen. And
other fixtures for the weekend, Inverness Caledonian Thistle, they will be hosting Ross County. Kilmarnock, they will be playing Partick Thistle. Motherwell will be playing St Johnstone, and Rangers will be playing Hamilton in Pedro Caixinha's first game in charge. Can Pedro get off to a winning start, Gregor?
I don't see why not. I think they'll definitely be on a high after the performance on Sunday. They'll be full of confidence, and really when you look at Hamilton last week, was it 4-0 they lost to Hearts? They'll probably be hurting a little bit. But the thing with Hamilton is they'll probably be looking to get a reaction from that game, so I don't think they'll probably roll over as easily, but I see them being a little bit fragile. I don't know if it'll quite be as comprehensive as a 6-0 a few weeks ago when they met, but I'd say you do fancy Pedro Caixinha to get his first win in that match, really.
And quick before we move on as well, Rangers former Rangers manager who did leave the position, Mark Warburton, he has been appointed the Nottingham Forest manager, so say that as you will. But we're going to go to the Championship before we move on down to England. I'm talking about the Scottish Championship, and we did have a man on the scene at Dundee United game. Dundee United were playing Hibernian, and Gregor was there. Jason Cummings getting what was to believe a header, but I don't think it was that as much a header. Greg, walk us through what happened.
Jason Cummings did a bit of a Jason Cummings. He did the brilliant and the absurd in about the space of an hour. It was a really good, brilliant goal that he scored in the volley. And I think his bookings, they were definitely it was a bit of frustration built up. He'd got quite a few offsides, maybe unlucky some of them, and I think he got booked for throwing the ball away just a minute before it happened. Then ball comes in, and from my view, I was in the way end opposite side. I thought it was a brilliant bullet header until I saw the red card and I saw the replay in the train home, and it was a moment of madness. I think Neil Lennon did forgive him because he's really, God knows where Hibs would be without Jason Cummings this season, but it was a bit madness for him, really. Well,
that red card will leave him out of the game against the Barton, but how vital is he Jason Cummings to the team?
He's absolutely massive. He scored I think 18 goals this season, 20 in all competitions. He's been such a big player. you can easily say, oh, where would he be without his goals? Although someone else would be able to fit in. But he's definitely Hibs' most valuable player this season. And I think if they are, Hibs probably, I can't say they will get promoted, but they look like they're going to get promoted as champions. You've got to say he's been the key man in the campaign to do that.
And before we finish off, we're just going to read off the rest of the results from the Scottish Championship. A United, they were at home to Falkirk. Falkirk did leave with a 4-1 win. Dumbarton, they won by 4-0 against Wraith Rovers, bouncing back after that 5-1 defeat against Dunfermline. St Mirren, they drew with Dunfermline, who we just mentioned there, probably from going abundance of goals to none, so it was quite a dramatic change for them. Greenock Morton, they were home to Queen of the South, and they did win by 1-0. Fixtures for the weekend, for tonight as well. St Mirren, they were playing Dundee United. Dundee United will be looking to bounce back from that defeat against Hibs and push up to possibly catch Hibernian. On the Saturday, Dunfermline Athletic, they'll be being host A United. Hibs will be playing Dumbarton, as we previously mentioned. Queen of the South will be playing St Mirren, and Wraith Rovers will be playing Dundee United, and Falkirk will be at home to Greenock Morton. All those fixtures will be at 3 o'clock, except for the Falkirk game, which will be kicking off at 4:45. And before we move on to the England section, we do have a teaser for today's show, which is regarding an English team. That is Leicester City. They made history last night, being the eighth Premier League team to reach the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League. But can you name the other 7 Premier League clubs to reach the stage of the competition? So we're going to go into the FA Cup action from the weekend. There was abundance of goals in 2 of them, and not so much in the other 2. But the game from Monday night, that was the big talking point. Chelsea, Manchester United. Jose Mourinho returning once again to Stamford Bridge. He said that he wasn't out for revenge, but maybe at the end of the game he might have thought differently. Chelsea did win by 1-0 against Manchester United. Manchester United did have a red card, and Herrera was sent off for a second yellow offence in the 35th minute, arguably killed the game. But in the second half, N'Golo Kante did score quite far out in the 51st minute to give his side the win. Where would you rank Kante? Is he the best player at Chelsea, the best midfielder in the league, or maybe even the best player in the league?
I think it would be hard to argue that he's not the best midfielder in the league, because if you look at last season, him at Leicester City, they won the league. He's now at Chelsea, they're looking pretty much set to win the Premier League for a second year, he's looking to win for a second year to Chelsea for the first time in 3 years. But, it's 3 years, sorry, my maths is terrible, couldn't think of that. But he's definitely one of the best players the Premier League have, and I think the amazing thing about him is he does get lots of credit, but to many people he'll still largely go unnoticed. He's not the kind of guy that you're going to see in the quick 3-minute highlights. If you sit and watch a game and you watch what he does, he's just so good at reading what's happening in particularly the middle of the park, intercepting the opposition, making passes to his teammates forward. And it's an interesting stat that he scored a second goal for Chelsea on Monday, and both of them have come against Manchester United at Stamford Bridge. So I don't know if that's a thing he likes doing, but he's definitely one of the best players in the league, and one of the key reasons I think Chelsea are doing so well this season.
Gregor, if Kante, he does everything on the pitch. His stamina is unbelievable. He's there on the defensive side of the mind. He's up there helping the attack. But if he starts scoring more goals, not being the goal-scoring threat that you expect from Diego Costa or Hazard, but if he scores maybe 1 goal every other game, every 3 games, is he a real threat now?
Well, if he started adding goals to his game, he's already unbelievable without the goals. If you added 10 goals a season, you could probably make a case for him being the best midfielder in the world potentially. But I do think he has seemed to be a bit more attacking this season. Obviously he's brilliant with Leicester last season, but he seems to be getting up higher up the pitch this season with Chelsea. If anything, I think his game has actually gone up a level, which I didn't think it was possible considering how good he was for Leicester last year. But I think if he added goals to his game, you'd be talking about one of the best players in the world for sure, in my opinion.
Another games of the weekend, Middlesbrough, they did lose to Manchester City by 2-0. Middlesbrough have had a lack of goals. We were looking up before the show. I think the last goal they scored came in mid-February, I think it was, and their last goal in the league came the end of January, and then the last win was a 3-0 win against Swansea in mid-December. Are they staying up, Bryce? Or is this lack of goals? The defensive side seems alright, with this game maybe being an exception, but is the lack of goals going to cost them now?
Yeah, we were talking about this before. I think Middlesbrough are the most boring team to ever be promoted from the Championship. They don't kind of score any. They don't concede many. They're just there. They don't do anything.
Well, my dad, who is a Middlesbrough fan, probably will be grinding his teeth
Oh.
at that fact. From there, we're not gonna talk about Middlesbrough anymore in case to damage limitation, but we're going to go to Arsenal. They hosted Lincoln City. Lincoln City be the only non-league team left in the FA Cup, but unfortunately their fairy tale came to an end as they were beaten by 5-0 against Arsenal. Arsenal did have a 1-goal lead going to half-time and added another 4 in the second. But look, if they maybe say reach the final, I know they do have a tough fixture which we'll come on to against Manchester City in the semi-final, but if they were to go in the final and maybe even win it, could that keep Arsene Wenger in a job?
I think this is the rife debate that's constantly going on. To be honest, it's impossible to know because there's so many facts and statistics that should suggest that Arsene Wenger will stay, so many others say that he won't. But yeah, if they can win a trophy, it's going to do him absolutely no harm whatsoever. Just going back to the match against Lincoln City there, impressed with Lincoln, in all fairness to them. It took Arsenal until the 46th minute, the very last pretty much kick of the first half, to score the goal, which I think will have completely killed the game anyway. But ultimately for Lincoln, it was a step too far away on an incredible cup run. But back to the original question, for Wenger, obviously he's won this competition twice in recent years. Man United are the current holders, they're now of course out of the way. He could win it. If he does win it, it will definitely help him. But for me, still, I think his time has sort of come to an end, really. But we'll see. Only time will tell, I guess, on this one.
Bryce, maybe if a similar thing happened, the similar thing that happened at Leicester with Claudio Ranieri, allegedly that players are falling out. Do you think if players are beginning to fall out with Wenger, a similar scenario could occur?
I mean, it's a slightly different situation with Wenger. I don't think he's quite unpopular with the fans, but I don't think the actual club has turned against him yet. The thing you've got to remember is a lot of these players came through kind of the youth ranks, and it was Wenger that gave them the opportunity to play for Arsenal. So they're going to want to be quite loyal to Wenger as he has been to them. So it's a wee bit of a different situation, but it's not any less difficult.
Can Sanchez and Ozil stay? Look, or will they be gone by summer?
I mean, I don't know. So I think Sanchez looks like he's probably going to leave, but I mean, Ozil's a weird one this season though, because he was very sort of active in the first half. He was doing a lot, getting a lot of assists, even scoring quite a lot of goals. Including a great one in the Champions League against Ludogorets. But he just hasn't really. I know he's had injuries, but he's just not really made an impact at all. So for me personally, I don't think Ozil deserves a move away. Sanchez, no one could really begrudge him moving away because he works tirelessly, game in, game out for that team. And they have won FA Cups, but I think he's the kind of player that's good enough to play for teams that are going to win leagues. So ultimately, if the right deal comes in, he's probably going to go away. But if Arsenal can't keep him, that'll be a massive, massive step for the next season because he will leave a massive hole in that team if he leaves.
And from there, we're going to talk about the final FA Cup fixture, which Spurs fan in the studio, also Gregor, will be discussing. Tottenham Hotspur, they won by 6-0 against Millwall, a local rival in that game, if I'm not mistaken. Goals from Eriksson, a hat-trick from Son and Dele Alli. And the man who does not score goals at any stage of the game, Janssen, was on the score sheet. He did get Tottenham's 5th goal in the 79th minute. But can they win the FA Cup, Gregor?
I don't see why not. I mean, Chelsea's probably the last team they would have wanted to play in the semi-final, even though they beat them last time they met. I think, but interestingly, I was speaking to a few Chelsea fans, and Tottenham were the last team they wanted to face as well, which shows you how far Tottenham were coming. But I don't see why not. They've got a pretty good chance. It's the first time they've reached. I think the first they've got in the FA Cup for 5-6 years now. I think Pochettino. I think they need a trophy just to kind of establish himself. Well, he's already established himself as a good manager, but that's the one thing missing from him at Tottenham because he's done a fantastic job. But a trophy under their belt, I think, can take them to the next level and potentially, spur them on to better things, winning more trophies.
And before we went on air, it was announced, I think it might have been earlier today or even yesterday, that Tottenham striker Harry Kane did suffer a ligament damage to his right ankle in that match. It's not thought to be as severe as the injury that sidelined him for 7 weeks earlier this season, but it could still be up to maybe say 4 or 5 weeks. But how vital is he to that team, and how would they struggle now that he's going to be out for a few weeks?
I mean, it's hard to tell now that Janssen scored his first goal, unbelievably, as you might say. But I think, he's a massive. We were saying this last week. He's such an important player for Tottenham. I think he's got 14 goals in the calendar year already, which is quite unbelievable considering it's only March. He will be a big miss, even though it potentially, with the international break coming up, it might not be as bad, considering he might just miss 1 or 2 games. But I think it's probably good timing for Janssen, obviously, because you'd imagine he'd be a bit more confident after scoring his first goal from open play. But it's not the ideal situation for Tottenham, but I think they may be better equipped to cope with it than they were this time when it happened earlier in the season.
Who would you play up front, Bryce? Would it be Son, perhaps? He did get a hat-trick in this game, and he could do what Harry Kane has been doing these past few months.
Son, I think, although he scores lots of goals, I think his best position is kind of either just behind the striker or a wee bit more wide. He's shown time and time again that he's brilliant at scoring goals, but he's also really good at setting up assists. And maybe with Janssen getting that first goal, build up his confidence, I'd give him another shot.
Mm-hmm. And quickly before we go, we do a running quickly, out of time. We're going to talk about the results from the Premier League. Liverpool, they were back on winning track. They did get a 2-1 win against Burnley. Klopp himself described it as a dirty win. Would you agree with that, Luke?
Yeah, and I think it's a good sign for Liverpool because it's the kind of match where, having gone 1-0 down so quickly in the game, 7 minutes where Ashley Barnes got the goal, you'd expect Liverpool to have, of old, of the season as well, just to have caved over and not fought back. But Liverpool did fight back, got a crucial goal through Wijnaldum at the end of the first half. Emre Can scored a decent goal, I think it was outside the box again, to the low bottom right of the net in the second half. And yeah, I think the dirty win is something Liverpool need to get because they've been very good at steamrolling teams. When the going gets tough, they do or have traditionally struggled to sort of grit in, but they did that against Burnley.
Mm-hmm. And other results from the weekend on this Wednesday, when we did go last and air, Manchester City were at home at the Etihad to Stoke City, but it was a goalless draw in that game, nothing really to talk about there. Bournemouth on Saturday, they won against West Ham by 3-2. Bournemouth being quite an impressive side since they have been in the Premier League, and West Ham probably just looking to get a mid-table finish after the lacklustre earlier season performance. Everton, they got a 3-0 win against West Brom. Lukaku, I believe, was on the score sheet again in that match, probably now chasing for that golden boot and seeing that Harry Kane will be injured for some time. Hull, they got a 2-1 win against Swansea City. Hull will be looking to avoid relegation. I think Marco Silva has done an incredible job since he has been appointed at that role. And the fixtures for this weekend, Saturday we'll see West Brom host Arsenal. Arsenal probably looking to get a win in the league now that considering their league form has dipped as of late. Crystal Palace, they will be home to Watford. Everton, they will be home to Hull City. Stoke will be home to Chelsea. Chelsea probably looking to keep that winning mentality on the run and chasing that Premier League title. Sunderland, they will be playing Burnley, a relegation strap there. David Moyes' side will be looking to avoid being at that bottom place in the league as much as possible. West Ham, they'll be playing Leicester City. Leicester City do have 3 wins on the bounce and they will be quite a threat in that match. Bournemouth, they'll be playing Swansea City. And on the Sunday, Middlesbrough will be taking on Manchester United. Middlesbrough probably just looking for a goal. If anything, Manchester United will be looking to bounce back from their win against Chelsea on Monday night. And they will also be playing in the Europa League on Thursday. We will be discussing that hopefully next week. Tottenham Hotspur, they will be home to Southampton. And Manchester City will be playing Liverpool on the Sunday at 4:30. We'll be discussing that and more when the time comes when we go on air next week. And before we finish off the show, our moments of the week. Gregor, I'll go to you first.
Probably Jason Cummings' ridiculous handball / goal against Dundee United. Purely because of how just to try that in that game at that time, only 1 goal up, it was just complete madness.
Bryce?
Aston Villa are on a wee bit of good form at the moment after a few losses, so I'm going to say they're form for me.
Look,
Feels like it was ages ago, but technically happened since last time on air. Barcelona's comeback against PSG. That was an incredible night for them and for European football in general.
for me, ironically, I'm saying this while wearing a Real Madrid strip, but Barcelona's comeback in the Champions League against PSG. Before we go, we're going to read out the answer to today's teaser. Thanks to Hayden for tweeting in with your answer. So the question was, Leicester City, did were the 8th team from the Premier League to reach the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League, but can you name the other 7 Premier League clubs? And the answer was Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Leeds United and Tottenham Hotspur. So thank you and my host today for coming on the show. As always, please do tune in next week. We'll be discussing Scotland's fixtures, all the action from this weekend and more.